Settle on in, folks. The trial's got a good hold, and the night's wide enough to listen. You know, when you get to my age, stories don't come at you in neat little chapters. They wander, same way people do. And Roy Bean's story, well, it never did care much for order to begin with. I first heard about Roy Bean from an old drover who swore the man fined him once for cussin' at a mule that deserved it. Might be true, might not, but that's how Roy Bean lived, half fact, half legend, all Texas. Roy Bean wasn't born a judge. Far as I can tell, he wasn't born much of anything polite. Came into this world back in Kentucky in 1825. And I reckon the world knew right off he wasn't gonna sit quiet and mind his manners. Ran off young, got himself tangled in more scrapes than excuses, learned early that fists spoke clearer than promises, and a man had better stand his ground or lose it entirely. By the time he drifted into Texas, he'd already lived 3 lifetimes worth of trouble. Bartender, gambler, smuggler, jailbird, the kind of man towns didn't invite but somehow always ended up needing. Texas back then was unfinished business, with railroad camps popping up like weeds after rain. Men with pay in their pockets and nowhere decent to spend it. Saloons louder than churches and fists quicker than apologies. And west of the Pecos, west of the Pecos, the law didn't exactly disappear, it just got tired. Judges stayed east, where the ink dried clean on paper. Sheriffs were few, and the land was big. That's where Roy Bean landed, right in the middle of dust, whiskey, and men who needed someone to say enough. Langtree wasn't much of a town, more like a pause between bad decisions. Roy opened a saloon there and named it the Jersey Lily, after Lily Langtree, a famous actress he admired the way a man admires the moon faithful. Distant and certain she was too good for him. Her picture hung behind the bar like a saint, watching over sinners who didn't much care they were sinners. One day trouble walked in, same as always. The fight turned ugly, voices got loud, and suddenly everyone was looking around for someone official. There wasn't a sheriff, there wasn't a judge, just Roy Bean behind the bar, wiping a glass and watching men lose their sense. Roy looked around and figured what Texas often figures. If nobody else is gonna do it, someone has to. So he did. Bought himself a Texas law book that was already out of date, set it on the bar, laid his revolver nearby, and declared himself justice of the peace. No election, no oath, just nerve. Court was held right there in the saloon. The bar was the bench. The whiskey shelf was the jury. And the gun? Well, that was just to keep folks honest. Roy didn't believe in long trials, didn't believe in lawyers at all. Said they twisted words until truth couldn't recognize itself. If a lawyer spoke up too long in Roy's court, Roy fined him for wasting daylight. He fined men for fighting, for drinking, for being loud, for being unlucky. If you didn't have money, he took cattle. If you didn't have cattle, he took boots. If you didn't have boots, he found something you'd miss. One time, they brought him a dead Irish railroad worker. Man had $40 in his pockets. Roy flipped through his law book and found a statute against carrying a concealed weapon, declared the dead man guilty, confiscated the money to pay burial expenses, and charged the corpse court costs. Nobody argued. Hard to appeal when you're already buried. Roy sentenced plenty of men to hang, too, which was impressive, considering Langtree didn't have a gallows. He'd pass the sentence anyway and delay the execution until someone built one. Funny thing is, nobody ever did. Most of those men either straightened up or left town in a hurry. Roy figured fear worked just fine without rope. Now Roy Bean was ruthless, no doubt about it. But he had lines he wouldn't cross. He hated men who hurt women. Hated it deep. A man accused of mistreating a woman in Roy's court learned real quick that mercy wasn't part of the menu. Roy handled those cases personal. That earned him loyalty you can't buy. Through it all, he kept writing letters to Lily Langtry. Polite letters, hopeful letters. She wrote back sometimes, kind and distant. Roy promised that if she ever came to Langtry, he'd throw the finest celebration Texas had ever seen. Roy built an opera house just for her. It sat there empty, waiting, like a dream nobody told until it was too late. As years rolled on, Texas changed. Railroads finished their work. Real judges showed up. Law got thicker, slower, more official. Roy got older. Hair thinned. Hands shook a bit, temper still sharp, just took longer to rise. He kept holding court though, same as always. Texas had outgrown him, but it hadn't replaced him. In 1903, Roy Bean went to Del Rio, drank hard, lived fast, same way he always had. One night his heart gave out. No trial, no verdict. The law west of the Pecos died quiet for once. When Lily Langtry finally came to Langtry later on, she stood at Roy Bean's grave and left flowers. The opera house never saw its star. Roy Bean wasn't fair, but he was present, and in a land where nobody else wanted the job, sometimes that was enough. Texas doesn't remember him because he was right. Texas remembers him because he stood up when the law didn't want to come that far west. Folks, the fire's burning a little lower now. Coffee's gone bitter at the bottom of the pot. Somewhere out past the Pecos, the dust still remembers a man who kept order with whiskey, nerve, and a stubborn streak. This has been Lone Star Stories. Come on back next time. Pull up a bedroll and listen close, because there's always another tall Texas tale to be told under the Lone Star.